Cool. So, welcome everybody to the very first segment of Mums Talk Sex, which is a part of the We Are Unlimited podcast, a podcast created around all things success, not just success in a particular niche, but holistic success. I've already got that word on the brain. So, we have a free success Facebook coaching group, and this podcast is a part of that. So we would invite you to come and join the conversation afterwards if you've got some questions that you'd like to ask Misty after. I'm giving the cat's out of the bag. After the show, then you can I'll drop some links there and you can come and join us there. But we have got a very special guest on today. It's Misty Johnson McIntyre. Welcome, Misty.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So just a bit about Misty. Misty attended the University of Georgia, and obtained her Bachelor of Science degree in Child and Family Development. She then went on to receive her Master of Science degree in Marriage and Family Therapy on an academic scholarship from Valdosta State University, where she graduated as top of her class. That was a virtual high five to you. Boom. Love it. She is currently a board licensed marriage and family therapist and is a sex therapist with a certification pending completion. She owns and operates a private practice outside of Atlanta in the United States, as well as online coaching, so that she can extend her services to more people who are interested in healing and growing in their marriages. So she's creating healthy relationships and helping people to feel deeply connected to themselves and others. She is married herself to her husband, Ty. She has a son and a baby on the way, so congratulations, Misty, plus 2 Labrador retrievers. Awesome to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yay. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous, actually opening up the conversation around sex and motherhood, because I know, like, I work with individuals who have, stuff going on in their marriages, and a lot of the time it's just not even spoken of. And I see so many tired mums who, are really struggling in this area. And yeah, I just thought let's just open up the conversation and let's see what happens. So I have a few questions before we dive into some questions that have been sent through from our audience. It seems like you've always been in this line of work then. So was there any kind of inspiration or clues in your younger years that you'd be working with families and, in this line of work?
At the time, I don't think there was. In hindsight now, probably so. I was always the one that was sneaking Cosmo magazines. I don't know if you guys remember Cosmopolitan magazine. Like 12, and trying to get Cosmo so that I can read the really dirty, raunchy stuff, because I was tired of the adolescent stuff I was reading. So always had an interest in relationships. And when I was in school, all the friends that I had, they wanted to come to me and they would talk to me about their stuff. I was the go-to person. So it felt really fluid. And in hindsight was really a big go-to person in my family too. So I think those probably laid some of the building blocks of where I ended up. I didn't intentionally try to get here. It was sort of haphazardly, but I landed in the right spot, no doubt.
And I think we all do, don't we? We follow our intuition and what our heart calls us for, and wherever that leads us, well, here we are. And isn't that fantastic? So here we are today. Now, I'm sure couples and individuals come to see you for all manner of issues. So around this, I've got 2 questions. So firstly, could you just give us a bit of insight around the range of issues that clients come to see you for? And then secondly, are there any underlying patterns or causes of breakdown that are common to the clients that come to you for help?
Great questions. So to answer the first one, there's a range. So I will work with couples and individuals that are dealing with any kind of relationship struggle. And it can vary from adjusting to parenthood to being empty nesters and losing connection with each other, affairs, substance abuse, having trouble communicating, really the gamut.
Yeah.
And then the second question, common themes that really underlies all of those things. Most people will say it's probably communication breakdown, but what is really fueling the communication breakdown is feeling disconnected from our partners. And I think we have a connection crisis. I don't know about you guys here in the States. I feel like we have a connection crisis where we don't know how to really connect. And the only way we know how to connect is to protest or shut down. And either of those ways, we're longing to be heard and connected to. We're longing for that engagement, but it's just not happening, and the distance is growing. And then before we know it, couples are in the midst of a crisis.
Okay. There's a beautiful image. I've seen it somewhere. I think it might even be a sculpture. I don't know if you've seen it. Might even be from Burning Man, of a couple facing each other, like they've really got their arms crossed and they don't want to talk to each other, and it's really it's got that energy. But then inside of it, there's two little children, trying to reach each other, and it's a beautiful analogy, I think, of what you've just
Absolutely.
I'll see if I can find it and drop it in our show notes or in the Facebook group. Right, so I definitely want to jump into the questions that we've been sent through today, because I think a lot of people are a bit hesitant about reaching out to a sex therapist, yet so many people struggle. So I've got some questions through. So firstly, is there actually a normal amount of sex? Okay, so it says like a standard that if you dip below it means that there's a problem. We might have sex we might have sex once every 2 or 3 weeks, and my husband says that that's not normal and it's not what a healthy relationship looks like. Over to you.
Well, let me preface the question by saying, if you don't know what a sex therapist is, let me tell you what it is not. A sex therapist is not someone who is going to sit with you in the nude and tell you how to morph and bend your body into perfect positions. That is actually a common misconception. I think they think I'm often some sort of dominatrix that will come into their home and whip them into sexual shape. That's not the case. We are talking mostly about emotional, psychological issues that are affecting our sex lives, and in the context of relationships. So back to the normal sex question. I like to say that normal doesn't really exist except for on washing machines. It's just a setting on washing machines. And when it comes to sex, I think it's important to assess whether or not it feels normal for you, because there are many couples who feel like maybe having sex once a month or on special holidays feels normal and good and acceptable for them. That's an acceptable level of frequency. And then there are some couples who are being intimate, 3 or 4 times a week, and it feels like it's still not enough. But what feels good and what feels satisfying for you in your relationship? So if this particular person is only having sex maybe once every couple of weeks, then there's a deeper conversation there to be had.
Yeah, so I think where it's getting at is there's a mismatch in how much each couple want to be having sex. So what would you say if it's normal, if it feels normal for one partner and not normal for the other partner?
That is actually the most common thing that I see. We call that desire discrepancy, when one person has a higher libido than the other. And oftentimes we're taking a look at the relationship dynamics, what's actually going on that is keeping us off the same page. And it might be about couples who don't know how to talk about what they enjoy. Many women after parenthood feel differently about their bodies. After motherhood, they feel differently about their bodies. Hormones affect their libidos. And especially if you're busy taking care of children, if you ever fall into this dynamic where you feel like you are parenting your spouse, that is going to be a libido killer every time. So there are lots of things that go on behind closed doors that create that desire discrepancy that really has nothing to do with the sexual act itself.
Yeah, I see a lot of mums joke around, oh, I've got 4 children, 3 under 8, and my husband,
Totally.
So, okay. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about that, but it could be potentially completely normal for, let's say, a couple, if they don't have that desire discrepancy, to have sex once every 2 months or something like that, and that's completely normal because that's fine for them.
As long as they're getting their needs met and they feel connected, they feel engaged, and that is the level of frequency that feels good for them, especially if the duration and the satisfaction and fulfillment of those sexual encounters are getting them what they need.
Cool.
I will say, though, there are experts that argue that if you're going 6 months without any kind of intimate exposure with your partner, that would be considered a sexless marriage. And so there's a big debate out there about what actually constitutes a sexless marriage.
Okay, I'd say that's fairly subjective, isn't it, as well? Like, you know if you feel like you're living in a sexless marriage, I suppose. So,
yeah.
All right, let's dive into the next one, because these are some great questions. All right, here we go. So sometimes I just want to sit next to my partner and read, not really do anything much, but he always tries to have sex with me, so I never really get to have this experience that I crave with him. If I don't feel like having sex, and the more he does this, the less I feel like it, I either say so and he gets angry with me and it turns into a huge fight, or I oblige because I just don't want to fight anymore, but it's not really what I wanted to do. Then he even might get mad in other arguments and then throws out the whole starfish word. So he's not easy to talk to. He gets very defensive. How do I navigate this?
So this is sort of twofold, that there are some communication things going on here, like having some defensiveness, maybe not honoring your own boundaries, just obliging, having the choregasm, as I call it. You're just doing it because you feel like you have to, and you want to appease your baby of a spouse. But I think the other piece of this question is sexual in nature, is that there's something that she actually desires, which is to sit close to him, and to be able to read. And I think it's important to then be able to have a difficult conversation about what I desire when I'm drawn to you, when I'm drawn to myself, and having a conversation about when I do want to say no to sex, how do we say no without the other feeling rejected? So there are bigger conversations to happen here. And she could probably do some of her own work around what do I need to do to be open to being turned on, and then lead and guide and show her husband lovingly the positives that she's looking for rather than talking about the negatives.
Okay, cool. That was gold. All right. Now remember, if anyone's got any questions and want to talk about this further, just let us know, because we can open up the conversation online afterwards. Okay, so this one's come in from a more mature gentleman, actually. My wife and I have not had sex in over 3 years. Is there any hope? Besides this, we have a good enough relationship.
Sure, I think there's hope. Sure,
that's what I would say as well. But it's good to have, I think, to hear more people say there's definitely hope, rather than think, oh, there's no hope, there's no point in me trying anymore, because I can see that dynamic happening sometimes as well. Okay, so this one's come in. How do you discover what you enjoy? I don't even know where to start. How do you get your mojo back after children?
Oh man, this is the $50,000 question, right? So many women don't know the answer to this. And for many women, it changes after motherhood. What they used to like, they don't like anymore. I think a trend, and I'm speaking to at least the culture in the States here, but the trend is for women to have a tendency to go, do, and to be really overwhelmed and stressed out, especially if they're taking care of children, especially if they're staying at home, or even so if they're working and trying to balance motherhood too. And oftentimes that turns into a lot of anxiety and stress. And it's really difficult for us to feel sensual and really deeply connected to ourselves and what we like and desire and enjoy, and be able to experience pleasure when we're in fight or flight mode. So a good thing to do is to learn how to actually inhabit our bodies. And even if we don't know what we like yet sexually, figuring out what do we like that isn't necessarily sexual. So thinking about all of our senses and slowing down, and really when you take a hot shower, enjoying the water washing over your body, or when you're listening to music, feeling the adrenaline pumping in your throat, or when you're getting a massage, feeling the lovely pressure of your muscles releasing. We can take pleasure in all sorts of day-to-day things, and then figure out how does that translate in the bedroom. Then you just get creative and you experiment. And there's a really great book out there for women who are looking how to expand maybe their sexual repertoire. It is called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. It is a fantastic book. But really it's an exploratory process, and it doesn't have to be this end goal of has to be this and there has to be orgasm. It can just be this really cool winding journey, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual.
I think that is a golden hack, just and I try when I'm talking with women, because I hear this all the time as well. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't even know what I like. And they're talking about just general day-to-day stuff, and I start with like bliss bites. What are the small things that you can do that just make a huge impact? And what you've spoken to there really just expands the possibilities of extending that into more of a sexual realm, which I think is really, really cool. And especially, I know, as a mum myself, I've got 2 children. We're in that go, 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 do, do, do mindset all the time, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to turn off, and then wink, wink, nudge, nudge from the husband, and we're like,
Totally.
what? But instead of, because for us as women, this sex starts outside of the bedroom, and I think a lot of the time as women as well, we expect that to come from our husband. But if we can actually take charge of that, and in our day-to-day getting about things, being more mindful of the sensualness of what we're doing in our day-to-day life, I think it really gives us an opportunity to take charge of that power, so it will translate.
Totally.
And it's not such a black or white flip of the mindset. So
No, and it can be things that you enjoy without your spouse's participation as well.
yeah. 100%. That's cool. All right, what have we got? Anything else? Okay, so just to freshen things up a bit, I love to, whenever I interview a guest, I love to ask them, can they give us a piece of music that they enjoy, and a little bit of a backstory around why?
A piece of music I enjoy. I enjoy a lot of music. So this one's hard. I suppose, though, the easiest answer would be I would probably have to go with my favorite song of all time,
Yes.
which is Knocking on Heaven's Door, the Guns N' Roses version. It has been my favorite song for close to 20 years. And when I was in high school, my husband and I were best friends. We didn't date in high school. I actually asked his brother to my junior prom. So we were really good friends, and I heard the song in his truck while we were hanging out one night, and I'd never heard that version of it before. I'd always heard the Bob Dylan version or some other version, and I heard it, and he was singing it to the top of his lungs, and I loved it. And I was so close to him that something about that memory just anchored with me, and hearing it just made me feel happy, and it took me to that moment every time, and I loved it. And I burned the song on a CD back when you burned CDs, and I would fall asleep every night listening to it on repeat just because I loved it so much, and it just reminded me of good things. And it has been my favorite song since. It's his favorite song, and now it just reminds me of, it's just really nostalgic to hear it, and he loves it. It makes me think of him, and maybe it was written in the stars for us to be together back then. Who knows?
Awesome. That's so cool. So I love asking that question, because all of a sudden it just opens the doors into somebody's heart and soul, and we know so much more about you now, just knowing that is a big part of your life. So thank you for sharing that with us as well.
Yeah, that's a fun question. All of these are fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all people as well. It just goes to show that we're all human beings, and that we've all got our own particular likes. And I just like to dig below the surface a little bit too, so we can juice up the connection, which we were talking about earlier. Okay, so one more question. I'm going to give you a little bit of give you the floor as well to pass on any messages or vital info that you want. But what I'd like to ask is it possible, to generalize between men and women to the degree that you could make suggestions about what men need to understand and do differently, and vice versa when it comes to sex and being unhappy in a relationship?
Ooh, that's a really great question. I tend to try to avoid generalizations because there are always stereotypes that just don't hold true. Um, but I don't know if I'll speak so much to men and women as much as I will when it comes to sex, the different types of libidos. And then the listeners can decide which department they fall into. So for many people, most people would say men, when it comes to their sexual drive, they're more like a microwave, that they can turn on instantly. And women are more like a crock pot, where they need a lot of time to warm up. They need a lot of foreplay. They need to be in the right headspace. Not always true. Sometimes women have really high libidos and men don't. But those are the two different types of libidos: spontaneous libido, that can get ready right then and there, and responsive libido, which actually needs a stimulus for you to be able to be open to the idea of being turned on. And I think that if we can understand that a lot of times partners they're paired differently, that is often what creates the desire discrepancy. It isn't about you don't find me attractive. It isn't about you don't want to be with me. It isn't about you're too busy. Rather, we have different styles of relating sexually. And the more we can come to understand each other's sexual drive style, the better we can be equipped with the tools that we need to actually reach our partner intimately.
That is amazing. So I love the more we can understand people, and I love psychometric tests and everything like that, so we can really understand each other on a different and deeper level. But I'm not a sex therapist, and I've not heard about these different types of libido. So I think a lot of people listening as well will find that really interesting. Are there any further resources where people could read more about that? Is it fairly obvious to someone if they're one type of libido or the other? Like, to me, it definitely is.
I think the majority of people can really identify one or the other. And if you don't know, then you might be more of a responsive libido if you don't know.
Cool. There's so much heartache and so much pain that is caused from us as humans expecting other humans in a relationship to act in the same way that we would, and then getting upset when and frustrated when people don't. So, I think that little piece of value there is going to go a long way. So thank you so much for that. We've got a few more minutes left, Misty. So is there anything else? Firstly, if you've got anything to share with our listeners, feel free to let us know. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with the people that are listening today?
Yeah, I would like people to know that if you are dealing with relationship issues, that it's common. You're not alone. And for the women listening, especially after motherhood, I think the percentage is somewhere around 82% report a decline in marital satisfaction or sexual satisfaction after the birth of their child. So just know that it's normal. You're not alone. But just because it's normal doesn't mean that it feels good, and it doesn't mean it has to be the standard. So just know that there are resources out there, there are support systems in place so that you and your partner can connect better intimately, so that you can connect better relationally, and really boost your satisfaction during the season of life. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. And there are seasons for it as well. And it is a tough season. I've had 2 children myself. I know just what it's like to suddenly go from one person operating in the world and kind of doing whatever it is that you like, and maybe a couple of fur babies, to all of a sudden, it's just like mommy, 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 everybody wanting a piece of you all the time. And then stopping and realizing, well, who am I? And what is it that I'm here to do in the world if it's not just mummy? And some people are very happy to be in that situation, but other people, they feel there's so much more inside of them calling them out for more, to be more expressive of who they are, but they don't even know who they are anymore. So
Yeah, I find for me the challenge is I love being a mom. Like you mentioned, I've got he'll be 3 in April, and then we will have a newborn by then. And so I love being a parent, but I also have a lot of ambition, and balancing the two is sometimes really difficult in this season too.
Okay, so anyone who's listening, so we get a lot of mums feel guilt, the whole like, who am I to want to express myself and be ambitious and be aspirational. And I know in New Zealand, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but there's a little bit of there's this kind of seed of guilt that runs through the community if you're not necessarily waiting at the school gate, 10 minutes before it's time to pick up your children and all of that kind of thing. So is that something that that you get in the States as well? Is it something that you've had to negotiate and navigate?
Yeah, for us, I think there's guilt either way. So if you're working too hard, you're expected to parent as though you're a stay-at-home mom. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're expected to contribute as though you were working. And so either way, there's this pull and this guilt. But I think those are just social constructs, and we're told that that's the way that it's supposed to be, and therefore it is.
Until you bust free of it.
Bust free from it. Totally.
Then it doesn't matter anymore. So, how can people get in touch with you, Misty? How can they find you? Because this has been amazing, and I'm sure that you've really connected with a lot of people who are listening today.
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways. If anyone wants to schedule a free consultation, they certainly can. We offer a variety of services and programs, and we will work with anyone, anywhere, provided that we can help. And so the best way to do that, would it be best if I say the links aloud, or if I share them with you?
You can say the links, and we'll also drop them in the show notes and in the various places where this podcast is kind of shared.
Okay,
so a number of groups.
Cool. So the link for the consultation call is https://meetme.so/relationship consultation. That's a mouthful. And I may drop you the other link for just a free PDF if they want to download it. But it's sort of a mouthful with lots of weird letters and things that might not be as verbal friendly. So I will drop that to you. And I would invite anyone to join our free Facebook community. It is called The Connected Couple on Facebook. It is a Facebook group of like-minded couples and individuals who are looking to grow their relationships in a supportive environment that is conducive to bringing our best selves to the table. We do free Q&A. There are a couple of other freebies in there. And of course, we try to stay really engaged in the group and give as many people as much support as they need. And they have a lot of peer connection too. So it's a great place to be too.
Awesome. Cool. So I'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes and anywhere that this podcast kind of pops up online. Thank you so much today, Misty, for coming here and kicking off this segment and answering those questions that I think have been bumbling around in people's minds and not really knowing who or how to ask them. So, I think that you've really given a lot of value, and will, I think people will, their worlds will be open that little bit more to something more out there as far as their, sexual satisfaction and marital satisfaction. And of course that has an ongoing ripple effect into families and communities and everything like that. So just want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your knowledge and love for, for people. And that's what we do as coaches, isn't it? So
right. And thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun, and granted is just the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully the tip of the iceberg is enough to start opening up some conversations and expanded mindsets for the listeners.
Definitely. It's not as horrendous as it seems talking to a sex therapist, is it? So there we go.
No, and I tell you, we've heard it all. We've heard it all. There's nothing you could probably tell us that would shock us. We are actually trained in to be shocked as much as possible so that we're no longer shocked.
yeah, definitely. It's important to be neutral and open and loving. So I think it's perfect. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so, so much. And I'm going to release
Thank
you
you.
back to your family and your fur babies. And I've locked mine up because mine tend to come, mine love people. So whenever they hear me doing an interview, that's like woof and meow and everything. So I'll go and let mine out. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, hopefully people will connect with you and they can start making some improvements in their lives if that's what they've got going on for them.
Here for them if it feels like a fit.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Bye, Misty.
Bye, Helen.